Okay, now we're back on. All right, thank you. Thank you, Richard. Can I bang the gavel again? Would that help? I see that we have quorum, members of council, gentlemen, staff. Thank you for joining us for the Committee of the Whole meeting of May 2nd. It has been moved by Councillor Ribbiak that the agenda for the May 2nd, 2016 Committee of the Whole meeting be adopted. Are there any changes to the agenda? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. The next item is disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. That is any conflicts of interest. Do any members of council have any conflicts of interest they need to disclose at this time?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Can that be so noted that there are no conflicts? Thank you. We're going to try our best at this. We're using a bit of a different electronic system, so I hope that as we go through the meeting, we might have a little bit of, let's call it clunkiness. So I wish all the best to our colleagues. We do have a motion. It's been moved by Councillor King that Committee of the Whole receives the April 2016 Planning and Development Services Report for information. Any comments or questions regarding that report? I would say, if council's not going to say anything, just very pleased to see some of the recent activity and the statistics from March to April, compared especially to the 2015 results. Lots of inspections, but the value of construction certainly increased quite dramatically, and that's as a result of the some of the new commercial permits and complex large building permits. So very pleased to see some of that occurring. Any other comments or questions with anything under that? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Durley that the Corporate Services Department report on the 2015 projected surplus be received, and the Committee of the Whole recommends the Council approve the transfer of surplus funds to the Working Funds Reserve. Questions or comments about that report? Councillor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to our treasurer. I note that the surplus funds, a huge component of it is decrease in budgeted departmental expenses. Do these represent a reduction in the transfer to reserves for the various capital projects, or are they savings of a more operational from an operational standpoint?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, they are not reductions in transfers to reserve. Once that budget is set in the capital and the operating, no matter what the cost of that project is, that the funding goes to the reserve. These are true operational savings.
Councillor?
Mr. Mayor, can you give us some examples of the types of
Some
savings?
examples might be when we RFP for snow plowing services or ditching services that are part of the operating, anything that's part of the operating budget, that those RFPs have come in lower than anticipated. And then again, working within each department to find those work process improvements helps to reduce some of the expenditures throughout the year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Going to call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Next is it's been moved by Councillor Papp. The Committee of the Whole received the April 2016 Corporate Services Monthly Report for information. Questions, comments regarding that report? Councillor Papp?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the treasurer. Item 8, the Town of Pelham website. We had a new company redesign it. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the Town of Pelham website has been redesigned by eSolutions, and that is now our provider.
So they will continue on contract as a advisor to us, or their contract work is done? Or we manage our own website?
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We manage our own website completely. We have now control of the content issue, which is done by Anna and the Marketing Communications Manager, and also the IT coordinator for the town. So we now are able to manage everything within our own website.
It's under our self-control. All right, thank you. That's what I wanted to know.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? The treasurer? Madam Treasurer, you have something under the funding announcement. So there is information there about the $168 million. Councillor Durley raised this at our last meeting. There was an announcement last week, I think, after your report was presented. Can you give us an indication of what that was?
Yes, through you, the ministry has announced that there is funding coming available for social and recreational infrastructure. They've announced that there's 168 million for the next 2 years, but 3.4 billion for the next 5 years. As you know, we are poised and ready to go for a grant application. We've got, would like to bring this correspondence to the May 16th meeting as well, so the public is informed that we are watching, our ears are to the ground. And as soon as that intake is made available to us, we will be applying for that project of the Pelham Community Center. However, in the meantime, we are getting ready with the previous expression of interest that we've had to prepare and getting all the materials ready so that we're not delaying the process of applying for this. I think that we're a priority project for the ministry.
Okay, thank you very much. My read of that letter that we received after the agenda was posted, and we'll look to it on the 16th, was that it was from the federal government and from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities,
Right.
saying that they were ready, and now they're trying to work on arrangements with their provincial partners. Is that, sounds like that's what everybody else was reading, so we look forward to hearing more information from the province.
That's
in
correct.
that regard.
Usually with these grant applications, the province is the one that actually does the criteria evaluation up front. But it did indicate in there that this was about 50% funding in the recreational infrastructure area, which is something that we would vie for.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you very much on that. Councillor Kersey, to that.
To that, Mr.
Go
Mayor,
ahead.
I'm just wondering, will we be developing our application internally, or will we be engaging the firm that we had previously used to look at opportunities that might be available to us?
Treasurer?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We did use the application that we had provided for the last funding opportunity. We had done internally. We had it reviewed by the outside source. They had made no changes to it. So we will continue on doing this internally unless council wants us to provide outside services as well.
I have no particular bias one way or the other, Mr. Mayor, and if our grant applications have been reviewed by the outside firm in the past and no substantial change, then I have great confidence in our staff that we can handle it here then.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on the report, Councillor Papp?
I think just to build on that, we want to make sure it's as comprehensive and airtight as possible. That also, I want to understand, part of that announcement, does it include any sort of indication that the provincial government will be cost sharing as well?
Ms. Ravensway. Ms. Pupo, thank you. I'm thinking recreation, so I have Ms. Van Ravensway. Ms. Pupo?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, at this time, it's coming strictly from the federal government, but we don't, we foresee that there's a provincial intake as well. As I'm in connection with the Municipal Affairs and Housing Corporation, they're indicating that the province will be sharing in this grant opportunity. They just don't know what it all looks like yet. So we're hoping, like with the last OSIF intake, it was around midsummer or early fall that the grant application process opened. So I'm in contact with my municipal my ministry contact at Municipal Affairs and Housing, so that we can have our ear to the ground when they think the province is going to come down with their announcement as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Papp. Just to build on that, the province did, they presented their budget first, but they did indicate that there is $272 million for jointly administering the Small Communities Fund to help address local priorities and support economic growth. And that fund does include, we're to understand, social infrastructure, so recreation and cultural pieces. So I believe that's where it's, where that fund will be. So it's just a matter of finding out, and I'm sure that letter will be coming, and any other correspondence will be coming to council, so we can get a better feeling for how things are progressing.
To that note, I did have a chance to speak with Mr. Badaway last week at another event, and just to build on it, because that's what I was asking him, how, if, when, because when they had their project, they actually got funding from both levels of government, so it'd be to our advantage to be able to say, even they ponied up 30%, 50%.
Right.
So he gave me the kind of inclination, the same thing as Madam Treasurer has mentioned, that those discussions are pretty intense. They want to make sure that it's not just that the dual aspects of that funding are incorporated.
Right.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I've had several discussions with
Well, I know
Mr.
he has. He
Badaway
told me.
and Mr. Biddle and
Mr. Biddle,
Mr. Hudak and
Mhm.
Mr. Allison, Minister Bradley, et cetera. So we'll keep
good.
discussing the matter with them, and as we get more information, we'll continue to work together
Thank
with
you.
our partners. Thank you. And I think one of the things is, and what I said at the public meeting on the 25th, is we'll also invite members of the community. I think that always has helped our applications in the past, that upper levels of government know, the federal, provincial government knows that the community is interested in this and wants support in funding it. So we've been successful in the past as a result of that. So thank you. Anyone else on that piece? Any other items in the treasurer's report? I do want to highlight and thank the treasurer for identifying that number 3 there, that staff will be formulating responses to any of those items of correspondence we received that were asking questions for the meeting on April 25th, and that you'll actually be bringing those responses to council so that we can see them and receive them for information. So that's great. So thank you very much. Anything further? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Sorry about calling this Van Ravens Way. No offense either way. Bylaw, Fire and Bylaw Service has been moved by Councillor Papp. The Committee of the Whole received the April 2016 Fire Services Report for information. Questions, comments? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Kersey. The Committee of the Whole received the April 2016 Human Resources Department Report for information. Questions, comments on that report? Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to speak specifically about the community give back, and our staff has done a great job of giving back to our community in many ways. One of the things that I was thinking about that staff might give some consideration to in 2016 is perhaps adopting a community, an Aboriginal community, and I was thinking specifically of Bear Lake. Many of these Aboriginal communities are lacking in many essential things that we take for granted. And so I wondered whether, and I just throw it out there for staff to give some consideration to perhaps adopting Bear Lake and utilizing your community give back in a way that is a little broader than just dealing with Pelham. And let's just put it forward as a suggestion,
All
Mr.
right,
Mayor.
thank you. Ms. Gilbert, do you want to comment on?
Mr. Mayor, absolutely. We definitely leave it up to our staff to decide where their funds want to go. So at our next all-staff meeting, I'll gladly bring that up to them, and we can keep that in our minds when we're deciding.
That'd be great.
Thank you. And Councillor Papp, I think you're going to comment on, go ahead, regarding Bearskin Lake,
I
Councillor
think,
Papp.
Councillor Kersey, you picked up on a suggestion that the Rotary Club of Welland, call it a conflict, the Bearskin Lake students are coming here the 3rd week in June. I think I mentioned it to you. And they have an extensive agenda. I'm trying to get them to come here. They want to meet all of us. They're just moved and touched by what's happened. And we, as a Rotary Club, have decided now to expand our level of giving to adopt what you want to call as an Aboriginal committee group, that we will work with any other groups and municipalities to fund that particular aspect. And so I'm very pleased to hear this, because as well, we're going to try and approach the city of Welland, but I think you'll get a chance to meet these people in a few weeks, and that's an opportunity that we were going to come to you, Mr. Mayor, and also do a presentation from you from the Welland Rotary Club, because we're going to continue our relationship with them.
That's great. That's fantastic. Yes, thank you. So perhaps it's an opportunity to bring staff together with representatives from Bearskin Lake,
Yeah.
and then staff can consider whether
We'll
that's something we
arrange
wanna-
that with you.
wanna
We've got to
support.
finalize the details of that.
Good, thank you very much. Anyone else on that? Certainly, we commend staff for their continuing efforts to take those Dress Down Fridays programs and give them to other worthy causes, so thank you. Any other items for the HR Director's report? Another item that's here is regarding the physical well-being. I'm very pleased to see that on Earth Day, that staff took to the trails at Marlene Stewart Street Park and participated in a walk. And I guess Mr. Zimmer providing excellent scientific commentary, as it says here, through the Carolina Forest.
If I may just say, he had
Please.
me eating all kinds of stuff. That was
Oh,
great.
really?
So, some fresh watercress, and we were smelling the skunk cabbage, so if you ever have an opportunity to walk with Mike Zimmer, I recommend you take it, it's very
Okay.
interesting.
Thank you.
Just eat a good meal first.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Anything further, Councillor Pap?
I would be remiss if I did not mention through you to the Director of Human Resources, this training of 2-day of the mental health first aid. I have a sister who has suffered a great deal, and she's gone through all the manifestations of mental health over a number of years. And if it wasn't for places like the Hope Center, individuals being able to help and ensure that she can cope with all of these different things. I think it's important that you focus on that, particularly where people are, you've probably been reading where there's been, the Aboriginal communities been taking their lives. More importantly than that, locally, anyone will tell you in the medical field, besides the physical aspects of dealing with medical issues, mental health is at the top of the list. So I congratulate you, and I hope that this will continue to be fostered throughout the organization. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you. There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Junkin that Committee of the Whole receive the April 2016 Public Works and Utilities Report for information. Our director isn't here, but we have manager who's very, very keen on answering any and all questions.
Didn't we promise her a number of
Yes,
questions?
I believe Ms. Holland was hoping for at least a dozen. Councillor Ribbiak will start you off on that hot seat.
We're just
Councillor
going to
Ribbiak.
move around with the
Yeah,
table.
we'll start here and work our way.
Start with drainage.
Start with drainage.
So kind of in a way I will. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm looking at the part of the report that talks about projects, engineering projects, and there are a number of road and sewer projects there. What I see missing, and I'm not saying that it's missing because it actually belongs here, maybe it belongs somewhere else, but let me ask anyway. The corner of Fawson Church is experiencing that slumping. Now, I understand that that's as a result of engineering that was conducted by the developers of Martha Court, and that they have some responsibility there. But this problem has been going on for some time now, and I'm wondering at what point do we as a town undertake that and either charge it back or create a project around this thing to kind of solve the problem. Can you help me with that, please?
I noticed it's gotten worse.
It does. It is.
Are you able to help us, Ms. Holland?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm very minimally familiar with the situation. I know there is a situation, but I probably don't have the details you're looking for this evening. But I can certainly provide those to you after consulting with the director.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just as a comment, if this is what's left over from a development of a subdivision and a problem for the developer that doesn't want to get to, at some point, I'm wondering whether it isn't a case of a developer hoping that someone takes it over because it may cost him less than the penalty that's left over. I don't know how long we want to just let something like this sit out there waiting for resolution.
Probably Ms. Weems would probably also be involved in that discussion if it is directly related to a particular development. So perhaps we can
Maybe we can ask her.
just ask staff to take a look into that and and see what can be done. I don't know, you have an answer now, Ms. Weems? You want to stand up and say something?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, no, I don't have an answer at the moment. I don't know the specifics of the Martha Court subdivision. I know that it does come off of Church Street, but we'll certainly investigate that subdivision and what the developer's obligations were in terms of any improvements at the intersection of Church and Foss Road. And then if there's anything that we can do to go after them with, so we'll look into that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd certainly appreciate getting an answer to when that problem will be resolved finally.
Okay, thank you. Any other items? Councillor King? Oh,
I have an item.
Oh, you
but
do?
I'll put
Perfect.
it through as a PSR because it's not related to this report. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Councillor Durley?
Just a comment, Mr. Mayor. The Human Resources and this report have photographs that are very enlightening. It just tells us what's going on and some of the conditions that staff is facing, and that certainly is enlightening, and I find it very, very nice to see this thing and very informative. So, kudos to whoever did it and keep it up. It's a great addition to these reports. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Durley. A picture is worth 1,000 words, whether it's fixing the kick plates at the arena or removing dead ash trees from cemeteries, etc. So thank you very much. Other, Councillor Kersey, you threatened, so go ahead with your questions for
I
Ms.
wonder if she
Holland.
might be a little bit nervous at this stage. You can see I spread fear wherever I go. Basically, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to make a very positive comment, both on the thoroughness of the report, but more than that, on the talent that exists within the staff that we have in this community. And when we were made aware of the challenges with respect to the staffing and the lack of numbers that we were able to provide given our fiscal responsibilities, and yet here we are seeing in a report that they're taking on repairing of the boards and grading of the bowl all with internally and fixing up a machine and painting it, and all things that probably in the truest picture are beyond their scope of responsibility, and yet they take them on, they use their creativity and their inventiveness and their skills and somehow move our community forward. So I just ask you take that back to our staff, how much we truly appreciate the work, not only council, but I think I'm speaking for our community, that they do one heck of a job. I'd like to use a different expletive, but I won't do that here at the table. So please share that with the staff. I'd very much like that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kersey, and it shows that that staff care immensely about our community, and so thank you for highlighting that. Thank you. Councillor Junkin, there we are at the end of the table. Go ahead.
Right around full circle. So on the last item, I see this Effingham Highway number 20 to Canberra Road drainage is being investigated in this area to ensure road resurfacing. And my comment on that is that I was talking to Pierre, I believe his name Pierre Blanchard. He's athletic director of Crosley. And we got into a quite involved conversation about kids riding to and from school, and I mentioned that we were doing the Highway 20, and quite surprising to me, he mentioned that even more important was the Effingham to Pancake Lane route. He seemed to think that the kids would benefit a lot more from bike lanes in that area as opposed to Highway 20, which I thought that was quite revealing, actually. So as we are looking at the resurfacing, maybe we can move ahead with bike lanes on that particular part of the road, or at least investigate the cost of it, perhaps.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Holland?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We can certainly look into the feasibility of whether that can be squeezed for this year, certainly, but more importantly, understand the community need and investigate that for sure, and look into it for if not this year, certainly in future years.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other items? So I did have some items. Most of them have been addressed. I did get some questions about ditching, so very pleased that that is proceeding, so thank you for that. And council colleagues haven't talked about this, but one of our long serving staff, Mr. Marr, has announced retirement after 29 years. It's amazing how the years add up, and certainly appreciate the service of Bob. So he has announced that early, that his last day will be at the start of December, or near the beginning of December. A very, very dedicated employee, so we look forward to bringing him here and offering congratulations from all of council. Without anything further, I will call the question on receipt. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried, and we look forward to hearing more information on a couple of those items that councillors raised. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Kersey. The committee of the whole received the April 2016 Recreation, Culture and Wellness Department report for information. This is Ms. Van Ravensway. Questions, comments for our director? Councillor Papp?
Well, I'm very happy you've got all the vendors lined up. Remember this, but especially that you've got 3 breweries and 8 wineries. That's the most important thing, right? Couldn't help that. And I know I've been approached.
Ms. Van Ravensway's supper market.
Expand.
You want to expand a little bit?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we're very excited with our additional vendors, as well as our wineries and breweries. We will be starting June the 2nd and going right through till September the 29th. We have since received information on the Niagara Investment Culture Fund, and we will be receiving $5,000. And that $5,000 will go towards providing local music from 4:30 to 6:30 in East Upper Market. So we're thrilled with that.
That's great. Thank you. Will all 3 breweries and 8 wineries be present at the same time? I don't think so. Okay.
You really want to rock and roll there.
All in
I
one
couldn't
glass.
resist, sorry.
Double fisted.
I'm gonna go there.
Glad they're rotating. Thank you. Anything further on the supper market? Again, looking forward to that in an expanded area as well, so thank you for that. Anything further on other areas in the director's report? Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to just talk a wee bit about Community Transportation Pilot Grant Program. And something that I had brought up shortly after my return from Australia. Since that time, I've done a little bit more research on it, and found that Melbourne is in fact not unique in the world in terms of providing free transportation within the central business district. And there are many communities. And in fact, an interesting statistic is a lot of the communities that supply free transportation within the boundaries of the municipality are communities that are our size. Once they get beyond and they get larger, then it seems like a fair fee-for-service comes into play. But in fact, to get the utilization that's necessary to support a community transportation in small communities, it seems that they take a different approach, and that is you solicit sponsorships, which our director has started, and promote the free transportation to help the economics of the community. So with that preamble, I'd like to suggest or request that a direction be given to our director to bring back at some future date, perhaps by the end of May, a report that would look at the economic impact of going to a fareless transportation plan. That she might in that report also comment on what the positive effects from an economic development standpoint might be by offering such a plan. I think, Mr. Mayor, perhaps one of the impediments to transportation might be, particularly for our seniors, is just having to pay that nominal fee. And they might be more willing to utilize that. And if our ridership were up, it might be easier then, Mr. Mayor, to garner sponsorships to underwrite those costs. The other thing that I would ask the director perhaps in that report to look at is perhaps route alterations that might again favor economic development and might also attract sponsorships. So perhaps having a route that drops off at Sobeys or some other specific area that really focuses on the economic impact of the transportation. And the other thing I was going to ask for, I know it's fairly comprehensive, is that we look at alternative usages of our transportation system, such things as community tours that might be offered. Again, all of these things to look at promoting the transportation system, but also to promote our community and the economic impacts of transportation. So I know it's a comprehensive ask, and that's why I'm, asking for a longer time for that report to come back. But I think there's some things here that we could explore that could benefit our community as well as the transportation system.
Okay, so just want to be clear, and I guess we'll take this as an amendment to the report, that you're looking for a comprehensive report regarding removing the fees from the transit portion. That's, can I understand that, is that both the, I'll call it regular and the specialized transit, so both components?
We can look at the whole picture.
Okay. And also route alterations to help with sponsorships, and also collaborative uses, as you called it, or alternative uses, sorry. So things like community tours.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you did say, I thought you said the end of May. Did you say the end of May?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And yet you also said a long period of time. So,
In my mind, that's a long period of time, but we could go till the end of June if that was.
Yeah, I
know
think-
we have a lot on our plate right now.
we only have one more meeting, well, aside from special meetings, we only have one more meeting in May, so that would be the 16th. So really, it's sort of a week to prepare the report. The CEO indicated that probably need a little bit longer than that. Mr. CEO? June Committee of the Whole? Okay,
Yeah, great.
okay. So have you captured?
I believe so.
Okay, thank you. Anything further at this
No,
point?
that's all.
Councillor Papp, to that amendment?
To that, we'll hear more about the work that the region's doing at the Transportation Steering Committee.
Yeah.
Because that'll help with the development of our strategy, because in a year from now, we're gonna have to make a decision whether we continue on or we don't continue on. And there is another core group of nonprofit providers, including where I'm at and Red Cross, that are doing exactly the same thing, figuring out how transportation can be integrated along with the regional and local development systems. So tomorrow, we'll get an update and find out how that
Yeah.
can help further our cause as well.
Perfect.
If that's okay with you.
The issue with, just quickly with the region, I don't know that they'll be trying to get something in place for January,
Right.
I think is the time period. So in terms of our budget and budget considerations, I think Councillor Kirsty's motion is much more timely than what, in preparation for consideration for budget here, than what the region is doing, because the region won't be reporting until sort of later in the year, so. So I appreciate you bringing this forward at this time, Councillor, as opposed to, 6 months from now, sort of we might be in the middle of budget deliberations.
Well, that's just makes it more
Yep.
for us to make a decision
Right.
policy-wise, whether we're gonna continue on once the project's done.
Right.
And the gas tax, so I concur fully that we should be in a position of whether we're gonna continue on in whatever manner that is.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else to the amendment? Essentially getting more information about it with.
That's right.
Ms. Van Ravensway, in your report, you state that you actually presented most recently about our pilot project. Can you just inform council about that as a way of information about, and I think that will help with the understanding of the amendment?
Sure. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I was contacted by the MTO, our representative that we've been working with the pilot project. She requested whether I would be on a panel with 3 other municipalities that also received the pilot money to just go over how our to give an overview of our project and how it's going. And in doing that, I was pleasantly surprised how popular Pelham is. They have said that they're using our pilot project as a example of what seems to be working. And according to the criteria, we fit the criteria exactly the way they wanted it. And now we will be working with them on sustainability. So that's our next phase.
That's great. Thank you very much for that. Ms. Van Ravensway mentioned that to me last week when she returned from the conference, and I wanted all of council to know that. And I think the other piece is that Councillor Papp spoke about the gas tax. So that's something that I'm sure the treasurer will be researching as well. Anything further on the amendment? I think it's well understood. Looking for a report with some information. Thank you for raising it. I'm going to call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Thank you. And now, anything else under the director's report with the motion as amended? There isn't, just ask the director to look at number 8. I think there's a typo there. Age instead of usage. So if that can be fixed. Councillor Durley, sorry.
Mr. Mayor, just a comment and perhaps a question. Looking at the ridership, it's interesting and very nice to see that it's continuing to inch up, but it seems odd that from week to week, the time of day ridership varies so much. Is there any perhaps reason for that, or is there any way we can look at that? Like in this April 28th or 18th to the 25th, the midday is way up. And the week before that, the early morning was way up. So, you know, it just seems odd in there. I just wonder if there's an explanation.
Ms. Van Ravensway?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, each month is unique in the month. So for instance, April, you have students that are in exams and finals and so forth. So their schedules are changing, as well as the ridership. Certain residents go to shopping on a certain day, or they may be taking trips to the hospital and so forth. So that's one difficulty that we've been trying to grasp, a norm. It seems like every month you're providing a service uniquely. Nothing is normal. I wish it was. And now the month of May will be totally different, because what we're doing is it's a transition. The students are done, so we will no longer have classes, and we will, it's our plan to have the summer schedule implemented the month of June, so then we'll be changing the stops and according to requests, and as well as sponsorships. We're hoping to have our sponsorships wrapped up, and we will be having stops at local businesses according to sponsorship. So we'll see a change in our transit. It's a real evolving process.
Councillor?
It's wonderful to see this isn't normal. It's also wonderful to see that they think that this is such a good idea. You know, it's working. So, but yeah, keep up the good work. It was a question that sort of jumps out when you look at the numbers. But it's like I say, it's good numbers because we're inching up all the way along, and hopefully it continues to grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else on the director's report? There being none, I call the question on the amended resolution. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried, and we look forward to more information on the transit. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Durley. The Committee of the Whole received the April 2016 Clerks Department report for information. Any items in the clerk's report? It was a busy month last month, Madam Clerk, so thank you for reminding us of that, and thank you for your department's work on that and for helping to facilitate all of those meetings, all the correspondence, etc. So thank you. Anyone else on the clerk's report? Councillor Papp?
I just wanted to express my deep gratitude on behalf of the Pelham Seniors Advisors Committee to the acting deputy clerk, Judy Shepherd. She's been helping us put together this form on affordable housing on May 18th, and it's my understanding that she will be completing her term of employment with us, correct, the end of the month. And she's been wonderful in doing that, and has helped us throughout the process over the last year or so. So, again, been very, very, very helpful throughout the whole process. Thank you.
Thank you. We look forward to that event. Will be successful because of the work of the committee, but also the support that the committee's received from staff. So thank you, and I trust that the clerk will pass along our thanks to Ms. Shepherd. Anyone else on the report? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. It's been moved by Councilor Ribbiak that Committee of the Whole receive the April 2016 Chief Administrative Officer report for information. Questions, comments on any of the items in the CAO's report? That was great news we received regarding number 6, River Realty and the Ministry of the Environment and Climate Change approvals. So very, very pleased to see that. We'd reached out to some of our provincial representatives to assist us with that, and because of that, it went to the top of the heap somewhere, I think, and they approved it. So very, very pleased. And that means that site servicing and other works can start this summer. So great to hear.
I was going to ask about that.
Anything further on that? No?
Just a quick question, Mr. Mayor, through you to the CAO with regard to bat surveys.
Bat surveys.
Bat surveys.
Now you're under number 7.
I am. Oh, sorry, we're still on number...
No, that's fine. Bat and skink surveys. I think there's a movie out. But go ahead. Never mind. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was unaware of the question. What?
He's looking for more information
Under
about
number
bat
7.
survey.
Yeah, on number 7, it appears that MOE is now requesting a bat survey. This is with regard to Kunda Park.
That's correct. The MOE has indicated that there is a species at risk within the bat population. Don't ask me what type of species that is. I don't know, but I could find out. But where there is suspected bat habitats, then a bat study is required to determine whether or not that species is at risk, is identified in that area, and then a way to protect the species, whether that means relocating or some other method. I'm not sure exactly the details.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, is there some report that we can get perhaps from the Ministry of the Environment to explain to us all this background with regard to Kunda Park, the various species that are unique to that part of the geography as opposed to any other part of Pelham or the Niagara region? I'd really like to understand from them what it is that they are doing and why they're doing it and how long it's going to take and all that sort of thing. Can we ask the Ministry of the Environment to perhaps enlighten us with regard to that?
One can ask, Mr. Mayor. More than happy to ask through you, Mr. Mayor. I can't guarantee that they would be inclined to provide a response. It's been a question that we've asked for some time. But
I would
again.
maybe ask Ms. Weens to come in here on this issue, because this is in preparation for an application. Is that correct, Ms. Weens?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you, there is certainly ongoing survey with respect to the skink. That's not only in the Kunda Park, it's also in the Saffron Meadows subdivision, and so I think there's a 3-year habitat survey that's required by M&R for that. With respect to the bat survey, it's actually in the Saffron Meadows subdivision, not Kunda Park. And again, the applicants had prepared in their environmental impact assessment, a survey of the bats, a nighttime survey of the bats, and it's primarily an acoustical survey. It was done over 7 days, and M&R has come back and said they need the survey to be over a 10-evening period, and so we are attempting to meet with the M&R. It's not only here in Pelham, other communities are also finding this, and so I have my colleagues in Fort Erie that are also running into this, and we're trying to get a meeting with M&R to try to find some resolution to this issue and ways to move things forward, because it is significant, it causes considerable delay, and it slows up development and economic prosperity in our communities.
Thank you. So I just want the CEO to add, in terms of the rationale for it being included, I was trying to make the case that it's for a specific development application, but the CEO's reminded me of something in terms of our own lands. Mr. CEO?
Well, we own a park, as council is aware, in the Kunda Park development. There is a municipal park area. So the reason why I've included that is because we're also a partner in this this process with both the skink study and the bat study and all of the other things that we need to go through in order for us to proceed with the development of the municipal park in that area.
Thank you. I hope that helps. Counselor, we'll seek to get additional information for you.
Well, I guess what's of concern, Mr. Mayor, through you, is that I mean, it sounds funny, but it is, as our Director of Planning suggested, very, very serious to us. And if there is a larger agenda or a bigger objective, is there some way that we can address the underlying issue? I'd like to understand what that is so that we can go ahead and do that. This does rather look at, like we're looking at just little bits and pieces of a bigger puzzle, and I'd like to understand the bigger puzzle with regard to those areas. I think it might help us move forward.
Okay, thank you. Mr. CEO, can you?
I will ask.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else to the Kunda Park? Anyone else to any other issues in the CEO's report? Councillor Powell.
Very quickly, I'm very pleased to see that the design work with Wellspring is moving ahead. I'm looking forward to seeing that. And also that the Lookout Point is continuing with and expanding its charitable event, so that the proceeds from that will greatly assist them in moving forward on the construction of that particular facility. I had a chance to speak to Ms. Mantini last week, and they're quite excited, so I'm looking forward to seeing the design. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? We look forward to that as well. Thank you. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor King that this regular meeting of Committee of the Whole be adjourned until the next regular committee meeting scheduled for May 16th, unless sooner called by the mayor. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.